because one is not enough. Chicago Cupca,
Nice.
Church Tunes, Commander Root, Dinu, EKU Pike 569 because that rolls off the tongue. Esposito, Exchange SME, Fair Brit, Feet, Flash Hole, Foul Temper PDX, I Am Curious Mauve, Jandin 2112, not 2111. Jan in the house. Oh my gosh. Jdar, KNHL, Chaos 13X, K McFerrin, KT Baker, Kubernetes, Lindsay Lizard, Lurks, Manning Wilkins, Michael Johnson, Microsoft developer, Miss Flux, Mr. TJ12, not Mr. TJ11. That's a totally different person. Mr. Blacksway, Mudchook, Patarap, Piece of Pizza, Pixel Robots, Princess League, Regal Bagel Games, Rimonstino, Roth DMC, Saddest Kitty, get Izzy a cat, Sam Goody, Scott Ledwig, Scott Betzel, Shadiest of Pandas, Sharon Bennett, Shortcut Sherry, TE Cable Guy, Techie Last, thank you for being our guest. Izzy, thank you for being a guest. Thicker, Tony Boroka, T-Stro22, VNK, Virgo Prost, Vizio MVP, and Wired Canuck. Until next time, stay tuned for AZ Update special post Microsoft edition and have a weekend, everybody. Goodbye.
Oh, it's Pierre.
It's just like you two to be like stomping on our time, not on.
Okay, we're transitioning out. You know what? Virtual high five. You're over here, Pierre. There you go. There's a high five to Pierre down there. Over there to Pierre up there. So, who do you have joining you on AZ Update today for the special edition there, Mr. Pierre?
Today, because we didn't have nearly enough of her in that 15 minutes during Microsoft Ignite, we have Heike Ritter.
Okay.
Yes. I'm very excited. The Heike is with us, and we're going to be talking about Microsoft Threat Protection.
Hi,
Hi. Oh my God, I was laughing so hard now in the last 15 minutes watching you guys.
Well, we were actually, I have to say this, Heike, we were in studio watching your entire interview with Bartolo. It was awesome. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Yeah. But
so
you know what?
We're watching. Okay, now I know.
I agree. I agree completely. That's why we asked her to come back, because we just want to drill more into Microsoft Threat Protection.
Nice. Well, you know what? We'll leave you two to that, and we'll sign off and say thank you very much for having us. I'm going to go actually probably sleep for 3 days. So
no, don't we have a meeting this afternoon after this?
No, I've canceled all my meetings. I don't know about you. I'll give you a pass for this time. Hi, Kate. Have an awesome time. Great chatting with you again.
Thank you, guys.
Here.
Cameron, have a great show.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. Okay, he's
a partner. He's your home defender.
He's my co-presenter, right? Yes. So no, I'm doing good. I'm super excited about what was just delivered the last 2 days. Amazing how we turned all of this into virtual events, and now we can't get enough. So let's do this and do a post-Ignite show.
Well, we were supposed to have Anthony also join us and say a few words to start this very special edition of AZ Update. I'm normally behind the scene, but today I am on camera with you. Anthony suddenly had some technical issues, so we don't know. Maybe he needs help from Patch or Switch or Steve, the audio guy. In any case,
we will make it. We will do it.
Well, when he comes in, whatever. As long as he does his next segment. So, no, there he is. Oh, maybe he had just forgotten to put the jacket on. Maybe that's it.
No. So I know you're talking about security. I think Patch and Switch got in again. My laptop completely froze, and all these logos of Patch and Switch showed up on the screen, and I'm like, what's going on? So I had to reboot, and my Defender kicked in and cleared it all out, which is awesome. And we're back up and running. So I apologize.
So we have a nice transition to Defender.
There you go.
Right.
So I'll let you guys take it away. I apologize for interrupting.
Okay. So I will be completely serious here that I have not been concentrating or looking at Defender or Microsoft Threat Protection in pretty much any way, because we've got Oren Thomas on our team, which kind of specializes in the security part to cybersecurity. He's actually doing his doctorate in cybersecurity. So I've kind of left that because there's enough in Azure for all of us to cover. So take me through it. What's Microsoft Threat Protection? What's the value prop? And educate me.
Of course. So first of all, yes, there is a lot of other tech going on, so I understand. So let's try to summarize this. So at Ignite, we announced our new rebranding. So entering a specific new market, which is a XDR market, we also aligned our products to this. So we have now Microsoft Defender, which is Microsoft's XDR solution. And it is composed of Microsoft 365 Defender as well as Azure Defender. So those are also two new names. So Microsoft 365 Defender was formerly known as Microsoft Threat Protection, and Azure Defender was formerly the cloud workload protection of Azure Security Center. So those two components now make Microsoft Defender.
Is there a chart somewhere that show where old products and why and the new names, and so that we don't confuse everyone? Like I'm confused
share my
now.
screen, if that is okay with you, and then I prepared that.
Oh, okay. I didn't know, but that's a great lead-in. It's almost like we know what we're doing.
So let me go and share this guy with you. So can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So this is kind of the entire Microsoft or threat protection by Microsoft. So we have, of course, in the center on all of this is our AI, machine learning, fused by all the 1,000 Microsoft researchers that we have in our company. And then in order to help customers to be protected as well as prevent attacks in the first place, we have these two solutions. We have Azure Sentinel and we have Microsoft Defender. And I will go again into Microsoft Defender in a bit, but because of the full picture, I want to include Azure Sentinel. Azure Sentinel was announced, I think, maybe a year ago, or earlier this year, I guess, at RSA, is our SIEM solution. And it helps customers to get all the events and alerts into a single place. And even though this talk is not about Azure Sentinel, just quickly spend a minute, go into the details. So Azure Sentinel is a cloud-native SIEM. It's not something that we built before and on-premise and then reported it in the cloud. It was built to for such a big scale, like lots of data, any data that you want. Of course, it has then all the machine learning AI to help to immediately get time to value. And then also any data that you think. It's like we have a lot of connectors. We even announced many more connectors now here at the Ignite conference. And it helps customers to do hunting and have a single place for Microsoft alerts, but also third-party events, firewalls, routers, whatever is there.
Yeah.
So, and then Microsoft Defender, the XDR solution, helps to protect the identities, devices, data, infrastructure, apps, and networks. And in details, this is what it is. So we have a cross-domain protection. We used to have Microsoft Threat Protection and Azure Security Center, and those are their new names.
Yep.
So if you look at what that is a lot. So we have identities, we have cloud apps, we have data and email and all of this. And I want to go into the old name, new name that you asked for. We have announced also new names for all the individual pieces that are part of Microsoft 365 Defender. So we used to have Azure Advanced Threat Protection. It's now Microsoft Defender for Identity. Microsoft Defender ATP is now Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And Microsoft, what was it? Office 365 ATP, I think there's a typo in the slide. Office 365 ATP is now Microsoft Defender for Office 365.
Okay, so I'm not the only one that's confused.
No. And it's still, we just announced it a couple of days ago. It's very hard to really already speak the new name. So if I still say MDATP, then it's MSDE, like it's Microsoft Defender for Endpoint.
We'll put that into our own user direct dictionary and we'll make the switch.
Yes, yes. And you will see, I mean, I'm hopping into a demo probably shortly, and you will see that, of course, also in the products themselves, it will take a while to reflect all the name changes. It's easier to do this on a marketing slide than actually in the code of all the individual products.
Well, you mean it's not just a search and replace?
No, I tried this actually in our internal wiki, and no, that didn't even work there. So,
Okay.
no. So did this clarify a little bit about the names?
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. So, and now what is Microsoft 365 Defender, formerly known Microsoft Threat Protection? It's our automated cross-domain security. What that means is, you know, if you look at the threat landscape today, we have many point solutions. We have something that helps customers to find, I don't know, like protect against phishing or spot user anonymous or endpoint activities. And then they get, because the tools are actually great, so they get more alerts and more signals, and the customers are just struggling to put all of these pieces together. So with Microsoft 365 Defender, we actually do exactly that. We correlate events and alerts across those multiple domains and bring them into a nice incident, a nice story to tell customer what exactly happened.
Yep.
We also do automation across those domains. So if I see something suspicious on an endpoint and it was triggered by a user, I can go and clean the user in Microsoft Defender for Identity. So our automation also goes and cleans up across those domains.
Yeah, you mentioned one word here that kind of stuck with me. Maybe it's my old ITIL background, but you mentioned incidents. So does the system make a distinction between events, problems, and incidents?
So I think, yeah, so we make the distinction. So I think the tiniest item is an event that we pick up, that we collect from those individual sources. And individual events are being correlated with our tech in the background or on the client, and they turn, if this is something suspicious, malicious, into an alert. And then alerts are being now correlated amongst each other to then build an incident. And an incident is something that a security persona should probably focus on. Open the incident, and within the incident, there's all the individual alerts that belong to this one incident.
Oh, perfect.
And then if you go and investigate one alert a little bit deeper, you might actually end up going on a, I don't know, an endpoint timeline or a user timeline. And then you actually see all the individual events that were like around the timeline on the time where the alert was raised.
So the system will help the security professionals in any enterprise to be able to like follow the breadcrumbs instead of having to hunt all over a series of logs and events in order to like just see what's relevant to this incident.
Yeah. So why don't we just have a look at that?
Perfect.
So I think, sorry, I shared just a slide deck instead of my entire screen. So I need to do that again. Share screen, and then I'm sharing my browser window. Come on, share. I have the donut.
Oh, you have the donut? Okay, so it's
gonna come. Let's see if that's coming.
Considering we had a whole 6 hours to prepare, it's not bad.
Why is that? I have a ever rolling donut, and it's all over the screen. Now I have. You're gone.
I'm gone. I'm still
here.
No,
I see you in the background, but I have like a milky glass over my. It says not responding, so which is not good.
Well, you are in the middle of moving houses, so maybe the Wi-Fi decided to move before you did.
No, it's. So I don't want to click anywhere, otherwise I'm losing this window right now. What should I do? So
about restart your browser. I think Anthony's could be in there. So restart your browser, come right back in. In the meantime, I'll cover. So we'll wait for you.
okay,
So we really want to see this. We really want to see this. And there she goes. All right. Oh, Anthony. So what did you think so far? You're back.
So here's the thing. I had the privilege of sitting down with Heike for 15 minutes during Ignite, and I wanted to make sure that she was able to show her demo. So I'm hoping she'll be able to come back because of the fact we were only able to touch on it really briefly. So important in this day and age because we're all working from home to have that security element. And now that Microsoft has combined all the efforts into one pane of glass for security professionals to really see and get guidance in terms of what do I do when an attack occurs, so much more beneficial, right? It's a
Absolutely.
huge change in terms of the way that we do security. I don't know, back in my day when I was securing mobile devices, what a challenge that I had one version of software for this device and one version of software for that. And now the fact that all the devices are, simultaneously accessing information together and working in synergy sometimes through the plethora of devices that we own.
Plethora. Wait a minute.
It's so amazing that Microsoft is putting their best foot forward and ensuring that they're producing a solution that covers all seamlessly.
Yeah, I thought you were going to make a joke and say that in my days the security was just to tie the dinosaur to the post at the end of the day.
Oh, here we go. You know what? You warned me not to pick on you for that, so I'm not going to go there.
All right, Ike's back, so I want to see this.
I'm back. Thank you. So what you can see here is the list of incidents, and you can see various columns here, and one of the columns says alerts. You can see that how many alerts are active and how many alerts are in there at all.
Yep.
So of course this is a demo tenant, and we turned off automation in multiple cases just that we actually have something to see and to look at, and not everything is clean. So but what we can see is there is, for instance, multiple alerts and from multiple entities. And this is what I was talking about. We have devices, we have users, we have mailboxes. And if I actually click on one of those incidents, you can see a nice summary. Let me actually make this a little smaller so that we can see something. So the summary gives you a great overview of, first of all, what are all the individual MITRE attack tactics that have been used in this specific incident. Okay. You can see the timeline. You can see the scope. It immediately tells you how big this incident is for your organization, how many devices, how many users, and how many mailboxes are part of this incident. And then you can go through the individual tabs that show you all the individual alerts and all the devices, and I will go over this in a moment.
Okay.
So, but also because some of our customers, they might have only one solution that is part of the Microsoft 365 Defender solution. Let's say they have Microsoft Defender for Office 365. We also invite those customers to come over to use the security.microsoft.com security center, because they get all this extra value as well. So they also have incidents now. Even if they only contain Office alerts, it's still something that they don't have in their, let's call it, old world.
Okay.
And sometimes you might have an incident that is only, if you have let's say a phishing campaign, a good one, meaning the attacker is really good. You have hundreds of alerts just because of one email. You have them all in one incident, and you see the scope right away, and you are not flooded with figuring out what are the other alerts all in my tools.
Yeah, because we keep telling the users, like, if you don't trust the source of the email, don't click. You did not win a Best Buy or an Amazon card. That just doesn't happen in email.
But it's interesting to click on it anyways. I need to tell you a little quick side story here. So in order to onboard the devices to the service, you can of course do this with like management tools like Microsoft Endpoint Manager, System Center Config Manager, but there's also a script that you can just double click for smaller, usually POC environments. Yep. And a CISO once in one of my EBCs was saying like, oh, that's cool. So I will just send this via email to all of my employees and we are onboarded within 5 minutes. Because everybody is clicking on everything that they're getting. That was funny. Okay.
Yeah, it's not funny when they get hacked though, but
I know it's not.
Okay.
So back to this view.
Yep.
So we have all these individual alerts, like list of alerts. We have even here you can see that there's 2 alerts that are again grouped. So we really help to narrate the story and make it as easy as possible to understand all the devices, user mailboxes. And I want to move over to investigations. So investigations is another feature of Microsoft 365 Defender, which helps, as I mentioned before, to clean up the devices or the users or the mailboxes with any kind of malicious activity or evidence that's there.
Yeah.
Of course, user meaning reset the password or turn on multi-factor authentication, these kind of things, or devices, it's malware or some changes that one made in the registry. And automation comes in 2 flavors. It's semi-automated, which usually most of the customers start semi-automated and to see how everything works. And we investigate the incident and we provide a remediation package. And then the security operator has to approve before the remediation is being done.
Okay, so there is a human gate there to prove
exactly. Yes.
Okay.
And then there's also the fully automated. He's like, stop it. And then there's also the fully automated, which is it's done entirely automated. Okay. And of course, we give enough freedom and customization so you can put your endpoints in the group fully automated, but then you might have some servers that you put in the semi-automated or user groups and so on. So there is flexibility that then fits any organization's needs.
Yeah. Oh, so that's kind of cool.
Yes. And we see more and more customers actually going into the fully automated because they don't want to wait for a human to first have to approve if you have some shit happening there on your end.
Well, if the alert comes up, if the incident comes up, let's say on Friday night at 10 o'clock, and you don't want to have to wait till Monday morning in order to address it. You just want it cleaned and the user accounts like locked and changed.
Exactly. And there is also it's called the Action Center, where we log all the activities that have been done by the automation, and you can go and reward something that you think wasn't the appropriate step to do. Okay. So everything that was found is in the evidence tab. You can see all the individual entity types, what was suspicious, what has been remediated, what is left, and so on. All this one thing in an incident.
One question about the evidence. Does it actually keep like a copy of the email that had the malware in it, or does it just keep a link to it? How does that work?
No, it's all in quarantine, and everything can be reviewed by a real human in the end. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So, and this is actually the usually when we talk about automation, I wanted to bring this in, and now that I mentioned human. So automation is not just, oh, there is something suspicious, let's isolate the machine. This is really mimicking the ideal steps that a security analyst would do in order to remediate this or investigate and then remediate the threat. There is a lot of intelligence, and every time we get an answer, we might have a new question. So for instance, oh, how did this file get here? And it's like, oh, it was downloaded from this IP address. So who else accessed this IP address? Is this IP address associated with an activity group? And so on. There's tons of questions that we keep asking until we really clean this out.
Okay, so there is really the wealth of the security center and the AI that collects all that information, and our cybersecurity groups, that all that knowledge is kind of rolled into that tool.
Yes. So, and today, if you click on individual alerts, you still go and you investigate those individual alerts, and this eventually will collapse all into this one single portal.
Okay.
So another thing that I would like to show is advanced hunting. This is also a unique new capability for Microsoft Defender for Office 365 users going to this portal, as well as for Microsoft Defender for Identity. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint users, they already had advanced hunting before. But now, if they use Microsoft 365 Defender portal, they can hunt across all those individual domains.
Okay.
So advanced hunting is a KQL query language. It's rich. You can now specify queries. For instance, hey, show me all devices that have some vulnerabilities not fixed, and a user with admin rights has been logged in.
Okay.
So this is huge. This is rich. So I'm combining the user information with the device information to do my hunting. So you can see all the individual schemas. We have apps and identities. We have the email data, events, attachment info, delivery events, devices, threat and vulnerability data. And then, because, it's all about community, we have a GitHub repository where people upload their great queries that they think would be beneficial for other users. And I want to ask everyone who's watching and listening. So if you want to contribute, please do. The community is only as good as their members are.
Yep.
And then you can also, of course, save those queries and share them only with your team. So I'm going to do a suggested MTP one, which is here, a log on after a malicious email was received. So see, again, I'm combining endpoint logins with something that happened in an email. This is amazing, like hunting across those domains. And then I can run this query and wait and see that, oops, I think there's one event that comes back in a moment.
Okay, that is really cool, because I remember back in my days where having to go through hunting all of those logs, you would find something and then you'd have to start over because you're looking at the second part of that equation, or like the user. Oh, we got this, but who's accessed it? But now you can do this all in one query.
All in one query. And the beauty about these queries is also that you can now actually save them. That's what we already did, but also create a detection rule. So, okay, and in this case, some of the properties are missing. But what is a detection rule? A detection rule is turning my own threat intel or my own query into alerts or like detections, custom IOCs, custom indicator of compromise. So I can say next time, every time someone logs on after a malicious email was received, I want to have an alert. I don't want to go and hunt again manually with the query. I want to have an alert raised into my system. So this is amazing.
So it grows with you as you discover things and as you set things up. That knowledge stays within the system, and then it'll start telling you without you having to ask for the info. That's great.
Yes. So we looked at incidents. We looked at automation. Or self-healing. We looked at advanced hunting. One thing that I think is also very unique to Microsoft is we not only help show you the incidents and give you automation, we also help you contain threats by integrating with Microsoft Endpoint Manager or Azure Active Directory when it comes to conditional access. You probably know this technology already for a little while, but if there is something malicious with a user suspicious, if there is something suspicious happening on an endpoint, we raise an alert, right? And now the alert has a severity, and the severity will also tell how risky this device is. And if the device is a high risk, you can say this device is not compliant anymore, and this device cannot access corporate resources. until the threat is gone. And because the alert was raised, the risk level was high, we do the automation, we clean the alert, we close the alert, then the risk level is set to low again and the user can access. So it should like work in, I don't know, let's say 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that there was something suspicious, the threat was contained, the user could still be productive, not access corporate resources, the threat was remediated, and then the user can keep working even with corporate data again. This is amazing.
This is wonderful. I'm looking at the clock and I'm thinking, man, I wish I had another half hour, but we have Anthony and his panel that are going to be joining in a minute or so. People want more information. Where do they go?
So I would say let's go to aka.ms/ms365d, which is the product website, and you will find additional resources over there. And then, of course, follow me on Twitter at Heike Ritter, and there's always some new stuff that I'm sharing via my Twitter account. That's the two things.
This is wonderful, and I'm so glad that we invited you again to cover this, because really, when I looked at your 15 minutes during Ignite, it gave me the I want to know more about this, and now you've given me enough to understand what I don't know.
You were just saying you want more time.
I want more time, but now I'm going to take that time and actually go and try it out on my own and look at it in my test description. And see what I can see whether or not I'm vulnerable.
Okay, do this. Let me know.
I probably am, because it's the test subscription.
No.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Heike, for spending the time with us, and I hope you have a great post Ignite. Hopefully an uneventful move to your new house. And
thank you.
We'll see you later.
Thanks for having me again. It was
Anytime.
great. Thanks, Pierre and Anthony. Thanks, everyone, for doing this. Thanks.
Right. Cheers.
Thanks, Heike, for joining us. Pierre, artificial intelligence, like operations, is in everything these days. We, from the way we work to how we go about our daily lives.
Just look at what Heike just told us. There's an AI at the back that's analyzing all that security information to find those holes.
Exactly. But the biggest question now is artificial intelligence being used ethically, right?
Oh, I don't know.
And that's what we're going to discuss in the panel today. So I'm going to drop you out, and we're going to pull in our panel. There we go. I love technology. All my friends come and join us. So quick around the room, if we can, just introductions. We'll start with Sarah.
Hey, I'm Sarah Bird. I lead responsible AI for the cognitive services.
And next up, Venki.
Hi, I'm Venki. I'm the head of product for Azure Cognitive Services.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mira Lane. I'm the director of ethics and society, and we work with Venki and Sarah on deploying responsible innovation across the system.
And hey, I'm Josh Lovejoy. I lead design for ethics and society.
Now, this conversation that happened during Ignite caused such a stir that we had to grab another 30 minutes. A lot of IT professionals are interested in participating in the adoption of artificial intelligence at their organizations and the services that they use. But because of the fact that IT professionals are always seen as reactionary, they're never able to put their best foot forward to properly help incorporate artificial intelligence. And the whole discussion around ethical AI use makes it so that this opportunity allows for IT professionals to not be the gatekeeper, but to be the heralds of the proper use of AI. So we're going to start in this panel. I'm going to start with Venki. You've been with Microsoft for a long time as a PM, and then following your trajectory, you're now the head of the products for Azure Cognitive Services, where you lead a portfolio of AI-enabled cloud container services. We deliver world-class AI in speech, vision, language, and decision categories. When did responsible AI become fundamental and important to engineering?
Great question. So, my goal as a head of product is to sort of first build great product that is really helping our customers. And the way we sort of know we are helping our customers is by driving adoption. And so, as you mentioned, sort of adopting AI at scale is a big endeavor, but but it also brings up a lot of interesting questions around sort of, how do you sort of use the response, how do you use it? And then again, how was it developed? Like what was done? So there are a lot of questions, both in the technical community as well as society at large. And so to me, there's only one right answer, which is we need to just dig in and start doing the work so that people can really trust the AI that we're building, such that they can use it in their solutions.
So, and that's interesting, is, we hear a lot in terms of the use of AI. I've actually heard the term rub a little AI on it and you'll either save money or you'll make money. It's an interesting, premise that people are putting forward. With the ethical use of AI, what is the strategy here? What is the work towards that organizations and IT professionals should be working towards?
Sorry, is that a question to me?
Oh, sorry, yes, back at you, Venki. Sorry about that. Anybody, this is panel discussion, so anybody can jump in.
Is anyone else wants to take that? Sorry.
Well, here's the thing, right? So in the inclusion of AI and a lot of organizations, we see that, I'm going to add cognitive services to my solution. I'll give you a perfect example. We work with the Missing Children Society of Canada to enable artificial intelligence to deduce when a specific sentiment was carried out on conversation in social media between a child and the possible abductor. And there was a lot of interest from outside groups, outside of Missing Children Society of Canada, to incorporate facial recognition, which at the time we said no, because from an ethical standpoint, permissions of capturing said faces and what have you was something that we wanted to be very cognizant of. In terms of the adoption of AI and specifically ethical use of AI, what are organizations looking towards, or what are they starting to glean in terms of the adoption?
I can take this one, actually. I think, as Venki was saying, there's really kind of multiple steps that we need to think about and that an organization needs to think about. And so one of the first steps is at the beginning, when we want to think about the impact of the technology, right? Who is it going to work really well for? What are failure modes that we would want to avoid? And we want to do an exercise where we really understand all of the potential impact so that we can design the technology to achieve all the benefits that we want, but avoid those cases that would be very, we'd all as creators be very unhappy to see them happen. And so the first step is really thinking about people, thinking about this impact. The next step is thinking about how we develop the technology. We have to develop it responsibly. If I'm the one building the model, I need to make sure that I have that diverse training data and that the model actually works well in different scenarios and works well for different groups of people. And so part of it is the way you actually build it. There's a bunch of considerations you need to take into account during your development. And then as Venki was saying, it's not enough just that we build it responsibly. We have to empower people to use it responsibly. And so we need to use tools like transparency notes and deployment guidelines and documentation to help people better understand how to take this very exciting, powerful technology and use it successfully in their context. And so we're also looking at how to do technological innovations and pieces to enable that responsible use. And so we really have to think about the entire flow. And I think that's where all organizations are going to need to move towards, is really thinking about each of these phases when they're looking to either develop AI or adopt it and use it ethically.
So Sarah, having a lot of IT professionals in the audience today, they're often seen as the enablers of end user access to this data. How does the data fit in the responsible AI story?
Yeah, data is a huge part, right? Data is kind of the lifeblood of AI. It's how we power everything. And it's very hard for a machine learning model to learn something that isn't in the data. And so it's a key part that we found, right, in practice, that you have to think very, very deeply about. And it's not just about getting as much data as possible. It's really about making sure you have the right data, that you're intentional about the data that you're using to learn from, right? And you think about how this data was created, the topic I already touched on before, which is, does the data have the diversity that we need in it so the model can learn the right things? Is it really the right data for this problem, or is it that it was data collected in a different situation and it may not really reflect what we want to learn in this case? And so a key piece is that we want to be really thoughtful and intentional and have a huge understanding of the data that we're feeding into our system for it to learn from, because that's going to have a huge effect on what comes out the other side. And to be honest, it's more than just the data. As we're building this system, we really need to make sure we have the right information as part of our design and part of our process. And so I would love to hear Josh talk more about how we really get the right information.
Yeah, for sure. It's I mean, one thing we probably all can agree on is like what matters most at the end of the day is whether something actually works for people, and better yet, that it delights them when they interact with it. And if it doesn't, like, why not? The reality is there's no way to know perfectly if something's going to work for people. But the best step forward is to try to walk a mile in their shoes. Who are the people that are actually going to use this stuff that we're trying to build, and what contexts, and what kinds of jobs are they trying to get done, right? So that's kind of the heart of what user experience is, UX research and design. We try to connect the dots between what a technology is capable of doing and the ways that people, we think, will benefit from using those technologies and those capabilities. One example that comes to mind, it's, I would say, not as sensitive as the facial recognition one with kids that you brought up, but it's sort of in a similar vein of that technology and about how generalized use sometimes kind of leads us down quirky pathways. So I worked on this product that was trying to add AI functionality into a camera, into like photo taking. And the goal, the user need, was like taking better candid photos of familiar faces of people. The initial version was throwing us some weird, unexpected results. It just wasn't getting always consistently great shots of people. And so we actually built kind of these custom debugging tools that helped us simulate. We could turn certain models on and certain models off. And when we dug into this one classifier, the person classifier, what we noticed was it was getting really interested. We use words like activation in AI, right? So it was getting activated by hair length as a proxy for women. So even though we were trying to look for familiar faces, candid photos, we were actually getting a lot of shots of men's faces who typically tend to have shorter hair, but women who on average have longer hair, we were getting shots of the side or back of their head. And so what we actually had to do was specifically ignore that model and then double down on our data collection efforts, just like Sarah was saying, where we actually, we needed to specify equal representation across both gender identities, but more importantly, because the goal of the app was to try to take photos of faces, we needed to make sure that always in every piece of training data, there was a shot of somebody's face, well framed.
So from an IT pro's perspective, Venki, how do they fit in the whole process of responsible AI?
They perform a critical role. I think, when I think about the work that we did in sort of getting AI sort of developed and deployed at Microsoft, there are so many questions around responsible sort of development and use. It really is sort of impressive the amount of skills you need, and given how new the whole field is, that the realization that almost no one knows all the answers, and everyone knows parts of it, and they have clear points of view, but sort of there's no process, there's no policies yet in place to just simply answer the question easily. And so what we've done, and I think what really my guidance to IT pros is sort of get all the experts together. So there's experts in technology, there's experts in policy, in legal, in design. Bring them together and sort of have a sort of safe space to sort of talk through what are you trying to accomplish? And again, as Josh and Sarah mentioned, like, what is the problem you're trying to solve? And then how does AI fit in? And then what are the issues that you want to come up with? And in our personal experience, we have sort of this ship room where we go through these questions. And it's just impressive how many different perspectives there are. They're all right, but they're all sort of different parts of the story. And so really want to synthesize. And the IT Pro has a really great role to sort of like facilitate this synthesis, so that you can actually say, like, look, this is what we're going to do, and here's why we're going to do it. And it's not perfect. It's, as Josh mentioned, it's not going to be 100% right, but we feel like we understand the problem enough. And then second, we know we have the systems in place to learn from it. And so I think the learning again is a critical part that's going to come up over and over again.
Yeah, and it's even bigger than just pulling the groups together, as Venki's saying. We've had to also build a team that has all of these expertise in-house. So we've brought together design, user research, people who can think deeply about privacy and security, how we handle data, as Sarah was mentioning, and even people who have deep background and expertise in tech ethics, philosophy. And so we've kind of brought these groups together to create a multidisciplinary team. And we used our team to go and augment, our engineering teams, because we sometimes need to bring in those experts and just kind of integrate directly with those teams. And the important thing to realize is that you can't hire everyone. And so you have to have practices to enable more voices to be heard. And whether it's bringing in experts or even end users and stakeholders who are impacted by what you're building, you need to find ways for them to participate and actively co-create. And recently we released a practice that we call community jury. And this is a way for stakeholders to hear directly from product teams and even co-create solutions to challenging problems. So as IT pros, I think it's important for you to start thinking about how you convene and bring together groups, where you actually insist on having groups being fully created to help empower teams, but then also finding mechanisms to bring in these additional voices that you don't really hire for, but that are a part of building product together.
So with responsible AI, how do you make trade-offs? Venki, as a senior product leader, how do you balance between responsible AI with AI investment and development? And how do you decide how to fit these things together?
Oh my God, this is the best question, because I think the heart of this enterprise is to figure out how to do the trade-offs. Because I've seen opinions on, oh my God, I have the coolest technology, coolest data science that I've created that can do this thing, and you're like, really? Do you really want to do that? To on the other side, look, all this AI is unsafe because it's probabilistic and it's probably going to get wrong, and we should even ship it, should even make this product. I think we've sort of seen this entire spectrum. And so as my role is sort of really to figure out, what is the right what is the right sort of path to get to. And so the principle that we have used in our team is to really maximize learning. We're in a very, very early stage of this sort of both in AI adoption and specifically understanding responsible AI development and use. And so the techniques we're mostly using is to figure out, look, there's probably 100 things that are issues. And there might be 10 that are like, ship stoppers. Really, we cannot ship without solving these problems. Otherwise, it's a facepalm moment. So you really have to sort of mitigate those up front. But then the next thing is there's still 90 more issues. But the question is, how are you going to learn? And so we spend a lot of time thinking about what are the processes and technological ways in which we can sort of learn. So we've introduced gating for some of our services just so we can better understand what customers are trying to do with this AI, right? Because otherwise, if you're just an open-ended service, people just open the API and start using it, and we have no idea what they're doing. And that's correct, because we shouldn't see the customer data. But the thing is, we want to learn, and so we've introduced this new process, a new step in our system to explicitly ask people to opt in, to say use our service, tell us more what you're trying to do, why you're trying to do it. That allows us to learn, and that allows us to build policies over time. And so the idea is to sort of gain the learning. And as you do the learning, you sort of mitigate the issues that come from it, and then you start scaling safely. And so the idea is that you start with small, but then you sort of scale safely, and that's the process that we put in place in cognitive services.
So speaking of trade-offs, Josh, how do we decide who we are designing for and who we're not designing for?
Yeah, it's a really, really important question, and a really hard one. Like Mira was saying, it's not comfortable. It's like not an easy conversation to describe who, if anybody, you're not designing for. I think I haven't met anybody who gets into this industry because they want to exclude people, right? And it's always easier for us to try to describe, how inclusive or global we want our products to be. But just like Venki was saying, like there's a reality to prioritization. We've always been doing this. Which features are we going to prioritize, on what timeline, for which markets, using which testing protocols, and that last one, drawing from like a non-AI field for a second, like that last one, testing protocols, that's actually why, sadly, like cars are less safe for women than they are for men. You know, somebody had to make a call at some point about a production requirement for crash test dummies. They had to figure out what is the body type that will best represent people so we can figure out how to keep them safest. But that call ended up being kind of this default male average body type. And the result is people are more hurt or people are exposed to harm. But AI is different. There's something different about AI. It doesn't have to be so rigid. It gives us this opportunity to learn, for it to be teachable, just like Venki was talking about. And that comes with these new types of accountabilities. You know, in the past, we had to limit our logic to the code that we could write, you know, the things that we could actually invent as rules. And with AI, we don't create the rules so much as we show examples, you know, of the outcomes that we're trying to make possible. So unless we've actually stated those goals outright, you know, who will this work well for, in what contexts, to get what jobs done, we kind of risk continuing on whatever is just the thing that goes without saying. Because everybody's different in different ways, but certain types of groups end up becoming kind of invisible or continuing to become invisible when it's too uncomfortable to talk about what makes us unique and what makes us distinct in our contexts and our characteristics. And then the stuff that goes without saying just goes without saying because we can't measure it.
So this all sounds great. Sarah, can you tell us more about where you see challenges and tensions in implementing?
Yeah, I think actually Venki basically mentioned a very significant one earlier, which is how do we balance privacy and, for example, in our case, customer data and customer privacy with our ability to learn and to debug, right? To understand how is someone actually trying to use this? What are the real errors they're seeing? And so we've had to do a lot of actually, I think, great innovation in figuring out how to build those feedback mechanisms so that people can report what they're seeing or they can share the information that they want to share. We also see a very similar tension with privacy and fairness, where we don't want, it feels, as Josh was saying, uncomfortable to call out specific groups, to have someone's race particularly labeled in a data set, but it's very challenging for us to understand and build a test that tells us that it doesn't work well for that group of people if we don't have access to that data, if we don't have those labels. And so there's a lot of tensions like that that we really have to navigate. And I do think it's led to a lot of innovation. It's not just, well, it's only one or the other, right? That we have to go and design new mechanisms that allow us to really try to get the best of both. But it's every day bringing all of these different perspectives there to figure out how to navigate these tensions and these trade-offs.
And Venki, are there examples where we've put this all together?
Yeah, thank you. We're just announcing at Ignite sort of a new addition to our vision product called Spatial Analysis. And that was sort of from the ground up built with responsible AI in mind. And so just to get started, spatial analysis allows us for the first time for us to use AI on moving images. So until now, our vision service mostly has been working just on static images. You give it a picture and it sort of tells what's in it. It captions it. But now we're able to actually look at a video feed and actually start making do analysis and run AI on it. And so in spatial analysis, we're able to sort of look at space and sort of see, figure out where people are, how close people are to each other. And this is sort of super timely in the time of COVID, because our customers are beginning to use things like spatial analysis to actually understand how people are flowing through the system, through their buildings, for instance, and then find out where are their choke points, and so that people are not socially distancing. And so that's an insight that they can use then later to sort of reconfigure the people movement flows in the building. And so this is sort of really useful, but it opens up all kinds of questions about privacy and what can you see. And so what's been great is, as in the design, both from the data capture all the way to consent for people to get into the models, so for the data in the models, all the way to actually for the first time, we're actually sort of doing a great on release responsible use guidelines. And so in our documentation, we have this great sort of documentation on when can you use it? What have we done with it? How have we developed it? What is it good for? And then how should you as a IT pro and as a developer use this technology, and where you should use it and where you should be worried about? Here are the questions that we want to ask you. So I think, it really has been our first example of end-to-end sort of from a lifecycle perspective, so looking at responsible AI from the very beginning to the very sort of to release.
And I think a key part of that has been transparency, right? Making sure that we are sharing the information that we know as the model builder. Here's the limitations we know. Here's the things we know that would help you get higher accuracy. As people who have been thinking about this technology and research that we've done with our customers, here's what we have learned that people react to or people want to see. Now, of course, that only goes so far, right? We don't know all of the deployment context and all of the information. And so it's just a step to empower customers to take their context into account and ask the right questions and make the appropriate decisions for their situation. And so transparency is actually a key theme that we've seen kind of across the board. And so one of the things that we talked about a lot at Build and something I'm very passionate about enabling this is tools. And one of the reasons that we have built a lot of our responsible AI tools in the open source from the beginning is exactly to enable this type of transparency. So you can understand exactly what the tool is doing and what it's not doing. Right? This is the fairness analysis the tool does. It's not magic. It doesn't do this other fairness analysis. And then also enable new people to come in and add new ideas and contribute and innovate more rapidly. But it's really important that people can really understand how the technology works and how the tool works to help them make the right decision in their context. And so is one of our principles, but also just a really important approach that we're trying to bring to sort of every way that we build products and tools to enable people like you to go and take the next step and use it responsibly.
And as Sarah and Venki mentioned, we're trying to be very transparent about our technology, but it also needs to be consumable with people and done in plain language. What you'll notice with the documentation around spatial analysis is it's not our typical API type of documentation. You will see all of these perspectives coming in. We're sharing more about the customer scenarios and the guidance around, how do people think about these technologies? What are they concerned about? How do you deploy it in accordance to the principles that we care about? Sarah mentioned some of our principles. They include fairness and reliability and safety and privacy and security and inclusiveness, transparency, and also accountability. And the last thing we want to do is just throw technology out there without any sort of clear guidance or recommendations. And so this is where we're also proactively recommending how you address and disclose information about the system and the way it's working, and doing it in a way that people feel informed and empowered to make choices to opt in or not. And so what you'll see in our documentation is just a lot of the deeper research that we've been doing as well, and using that to really empower IT pros to deploy things in a really responsible way. And we want you to have all that information. We don't want you to be in the dark and trying to figure out how to make choices. We want you to have all the knowledge that we have as well. And we're trying to be very transparent and humble about it at the same time.
So yeah, sorry.
Can I just add one more thing? I think the one thing that I would say, it has been a mindset shift for us in terms of our APIs. Generally, we always want to, as developers and everything else, want to say like anyone can use it for anything. And we are really getting to the point where, like, look, with AI, you just can't say like, well, it's just an API, just call it, and there's an output. There's a lot more infrastructure and sort of skeleton we need to put in to sort of make sure we support the right use of it. And so I think it has been quite a change for us, and I think it'll be change for all of you as well as you implement it, to think about all these extra things that previously. And so we've been struggling with, like, is it a tax? Is it not a tax? Actually, well, it is new work, but it's super important work actually that sort of helped us long-term sort of really get adoption and people feeling safe with the technology. So I think it's sort of an important thing for us to learn, and I think it's important to recognize that it's not just easy. It is work, and so I think you really have to go in with that learning mindset, and lots of cool stuff will happen with it.
So awesome that the efforts that you're putting forth to enable this. I wanted to ask of the panel, how long before it becomes just normal that this is a consideration as opposed to just adding on AIs in terms of technology, and it's just part of the design and build process that you're incorporating ethical use?
That's a really good question. How long before it's normal? We're going to push as hard as we can to make it normal as quickly as possible. And so this is where we are very proactive about talking about responsible AI and all of the different types of disciplines and expertise you need to bring into the thinking. And so, with any big shift, even if you look back to the way people, shifted with security and privacy and accessibility, there is an early phase where, we're all still figuring things out and we're trying to learn and understand. And then there's a part where you have enough critical mass where a lot of people are saying, okay, this is the way to do it. And so what we're trying to do is learn as quickly as possible and share that learning as quickly so that the industry is moving and shifting as rapidly as possible, because this is, a moment we're talking about AI, but it is a bigger question. It's a larger question about innovation all up, and not just about AI, but about how we think about technology more holistically. And we're using this moment to facilitate that larger conversation.
And I think as someone who's been working on this for a long time, I thought, with any of these technologies, it takes a long time to make this kind of transformation. But it's actually been amazing to see how quickly people have adopted and are just hungry for more. It's like once you see this way of thinking, you can't unsee it. And so our biggest challenge now is really building up those practices and the toolkits and really solving the hard problems so that all the people have a way to actually implement this and implement it at scale in all of these different contexts. And so it's been just incredibly encouraging how quickly people have really adapted to thinking this way, but we still have a really long way to go in terms of the innovation to enable this to just work in many different settings.
Yeah, I can sort of, at the total risk of dating myself, in 2001, we had this sort of big moment with Microsoft around security. And I remember I was I was a program manager there, and all these questions came up, and we were just flummoxed. We were like, oh my God, how is anyone supposed to ever ship anything with so many requirements and so many unknown questions? And you know what? It took time, but we'd learned, we built the tools, and we created a secure development lifecycle, and now it's just become how we do stuff. And it turns out not just it was good for security, it was just made better product. And I think that's, to me, the biggest thing for me is when we invest in this thing, it's not just that we are sort of solving some trust issues, we're actually just building better product, and we just overall the thing is getting better. So because these are just the right questions to have. So I think for all of us as the industry, we're going to be working through it. But I expect we will innovate as usual, and we'll sort of build tools and processes and policies, and we'll sort of have this will all become sort of normal soon enough, as soon as possible, I guess.
So I want to thank everybody for being on the panel today. We took the time to extend our session that we had at Ignite to a full panel. IT professionals are now eager to learn more so that we can make ethical use of AI more normal. Where do we go? Thank you.
Great. We have an AKMS link for that. So it's called AKAMS/RAI for responsible AI, RAI resource. I want to be a YouTube guy and say it's over here, over there. It's down
below. Well, that's a great first place to start in terms of your journey for understanding ethical use of AI. I've gone through it a little bit already. There's great tutorials and there's great logic. And a lot of conversations that happen within an organization from an IT's perspective. I heard a great quote yesterday. If I'm the equivalent of a mechanic with grease under my nails, how do I go then to the well-suited executive to explain why ethical AI is needed as best practice inside of an organization? And the content and the resources that are provided there are that talk track that can empower an IT professional to have that open dialogue with the executive or the business decision maker, we say at the organizations, to have that relevant dialogue with them in terms of why proper ethical use of AI is so important and it is inclusive of the world that we live in right now. So thank you all for joining us today on the panel. And we're going to kick back to Pierre. There we go. Mr. Roman. Oh, I can't hear you.
Yeah, this was, I was muted myself, and I actually sat and watched. It made me realize there's so many things in AI that I take for granted. I never realized that the potential bias that's like built into the models. So this was very informative and eye-opening.
And how amazing, specifically based on the IT professional's opportunity to build out this from the foundation to incorporate ethical use of AI in organizations, as opposed to just tacking AI onto everything and not really being mindful of how we interact with people every day.
That's right. But we have to move on.
We have to move on. So next up is
yeah,
Frank
we're
Bouchard
bring in
and
Frank.
Jason Hand.
Yeah, and they're going to, I'm not quite sure what they're going to talk to us about. Hey, good gentlemen, how you doing? You're both muted.
You're both muted. We're handing over the USB stick. Here. There we go.
Hi, friends.
Hey, nice to see you guys again.
Nice to see you.
Goodness, it's great to see both of you. It's been forever.
Yeah,
exactly.
So what are you guys going to talk to us about?
Well, Frank's actually going to kind of be leading things here, so I'll let Frank explain some of the stuff we're going to dive into. But should be a lot of fun. Now we've got some of our tech problems worked out. I think we're in good shape.
Did you need help from an IT pro somewhere?
Operations
is
everything.
That's why we called.
All right. Well, you guys have this in hand. So you're up for what, the next hour?
Yes.
Have fun.
Perfect.
Sounds right. All right. Thanks, gentlemen. We'll see you later.
See ya.
Hey, Frank.
Hey, how are you?
I'm hanging in there. It's been a week. It's been a busy week.
Yeah. Love the hat.
Oh,
like so many people were asking about those hats and t-shirt all this week.
I know. Yeah. I noticed it looked like a lot of the speakers had a lot of the swag that just had "Learn" all over it. I'm pretty jealous because this is literally the only thing I have that says "Learn" on it. I love
You're lucky. I don't even have one.
Well,
today we have a great show with a lot of stuff. It's a special episode because it's out of our usual schedule.
Right.
Want to do some kind of recap of Ignite, of course, and we thought about bringing someone that is outside Microsoft, so part of the Microsoft